Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and today we'll be diving into an exciting 8-man FFA. But before we jump headfirst into that bloody morass, I'd like to draw your attention to the fantastic backdrop. This is a brand new map created by Eclipse 2500, who many of you may recognize from the manifold scenarios posted to UMAD Commander's channel. This map was dedicated to a fellow player Engsfitz, but for its inclusion in Silmarillion, I've decided to call it DOR DINEN, the Silent Land. DOR DINEN was an area bordered simultaneously by Doriath, Himlad, and the wretched mountains of Nandun Gortheb. There's a lot going on the map, and that makes it perfect for free-for-all matches. Alright, all that being said, let's get into the game. And so we'll quickly run through some of the army compositions here. The first army we're going to look at is my own. I'm playing as the Elves of Ascidian, the Green Elves, for the first time in a very long time. I've got 2 units of the Erfen and Tower, which are a lock morale high-tier unit. They have axes, which give them an armor-piercing charge and damage, and they are extremely damaging. That's basically their focus. They've got pretty well some of the best armor values that the Elves of Ascidian can boast, with that being 8, which is pretty normal. But the rest of their army is very, very lightly armored in comparison. They're also quite low on their melee defense. Ooh, I like that little flash of lightning there. They're very low on melee defense, and as a consequence, they do die off quite quickly, but they will fight to the very last. I've got 2 units of Skirmishers of Rathloriel detachments. You can see one here. One's a little bit farther over in this direction. I've also got 2 Hunters of Rathloriel, which are a armor-piercing javelins. This is a dedicated skirmisher, not as powerful in melee as the Spear Host of Rathloriel, which you'll see later. I've also got 2 Scouts of Gelion, which is the dedicated archer for the Ascidian faction. There's my skirmishers. There's my 2 Spear Hosts of Rathloriel. I've also got 2 detachments of them, so a half-strength unit for half the cost. You can see them here. I've also got 2 Mythern and Tolgalen, which is a 1 HP bodyguard unit. They are extremely potent heavy infantry, but they're very, very expensive, and there are not many of them. So you don't want to get them caught out by javelins or crossbows and things like that, because you'll lose their value very quickly. I've also got 2 Spear Hosts of Gelion. It's possible for them to hide anywhere when they are in loose formation, and not in spear wall, but they also have a spear wall formation, so it's a nice little check that prevents Ascidian's front line from being completely overrun very, very quickly, even if it is a little bit strange for the kind of flighty green elves to fight in formation, but nonetheless necessary. 2 units here of the Outriders of Dweilwyn, and 2 companies of the Sentries of... the Sentries? I thought they were Scouts of Gelion. In any case, they're Sentries of Gelion. They're Horse Archers, and I'm going to try and keep my cavalry force hidden for as long as I can. I want to have them in reserve for the end game, as this is a very large free-for-all match. Let's go ahead and take a look at my allies' army. We have the House of Feyenoord, so big clue right there. This is on our test build, and the commander of this army is Eclipse 2500. He's got 2 units of Lancers of Anon in Galuth. He's also got 2 Herdsmen of Hithlum, Armatad of Barad Eithel, 2 units of them. You can see them here. Real sexy unit. I love that that helmet that they have. It really sets them apart. He's got Bladesman. Another lightning strike there. Bladesman Barad Eithel. His phalanx consists of Herdsmen and sentries from the House of Hador. He's got the Arimo Arantad to keep his army fighting throughout the match. Also got Fingolfin himself just hanging out there. This is his personal bodyguard after all, so that's where you would expect to find him. Oof. More Bladesmen Barad Eithel here. More sentries, and Herdsmen of the Edain of House Hador. Let's move to the enemies immediately across from us. We've got 2 Easterling armies, one commanded by Steward of Dale, and the other commanded by Tommy Wiseau. Steward has Eastron Horsemen here. I think he's got 2 units of them in total. He's got a front line consisting of Clan Guard and Halberds of Lothland. Very formidable front line. A lot of morale, a lot of armor, and a lot of melee defense. Not something that's easy to break down in close quarters. Also got Warband of Lothland here, light infantry, light spearmen. Ravagers of Himring, who are unbreakable, and they have a bonus versus cavalry. Got Eastron Marauders, 2 units of them here. They're a light axe-throwing unit. Chieftain's Honor Guard, extremely potent for keeping your army in the fight for a very long time. That's what sword and board units, bodyguard units particularly, tend to be about. Whereas two-handed units are a little bit more offensively oriented. You can use them very aggressively. There's a second company of Eastron Horseman. He's got 1 visible unit of Salamandrine Guard, but I'm positive that he has 2. Salamandrines they kind of do a lot of things. They're very expensive. You can upgrade their armor at a great cost, and it brings them up to about 10 armor, so they become extremely tanky. They've also got shields. They're strong monster hunters, and they are armor piercing, but they are very, very expensive as well. Oh, they have a special projectile that hits morale, so it's kind of one of those essential units, I think, for the Easterlings. We have Pillagers of Himring here. This is the high tier Falx unit. They have all of the strengths of the unit that we saw previously, except that they are not locked morale. But they hit way harder, their charge is way more damaging, and they also cause fear. I think Cyrodiil also has some additional troops posted up here. Yes, indeed. Eastron Marauders. We have some Ravagers, or some Sons of Ulfang here as well, so 2 bodyguards. Got more of the locked morale Ravagers as well, and they're going to be pushing downhill against the host of Hithlum. Warband of Lothland backing them up, and there's the second Salamandrine Guard in a good position, taking point up here in the hill, able to fire down into the House of Feyenoord. Looks like there's some Marines of Vinyamar there that I missed as well for Eclipse. We does have some armor-piercing javelins in addition. Let's move over, take a look at Tommy Wiseau's army. We'll try and go through it a little bit quicker here, as I know we are taking some time. He has Halberdiers, Clan Guards, so a similar front line. He's also got got some lag there. More Halberdiers, more Clan Guard, Chieftain's Honor Guard in addition, and yet more Clan Guard and Halberdiers. Marauders here, these are axe throwers. They're light infantry, and in close quarters they wield an axe as well. More Halberdiers. Got some Wardens here, which are spearmen. They also buff slightly the morale of units nearby for 2 and 25 meters. Oh, that was a big spike there. Pillagers of Himring. I already know all about them. I already read you the encyclopedia entry. Salamandrine Guard, Wardens of Lothland, more Marauders of Himring over here, more Pillagers, Halberdiers, and I think there's some of the Spear Guard mixed in there as well, the Wardens of Lothland. So a very scary Easterling army, a lot of heavy infantry that's going to be difficult for us to deal with. Over in this direction, you can see the Angband army commanded by Waffles. He's brought Iron Shot. Oh, that lag. There we go, that ought to fix it. He's got some Iron Shot Arbalists, Halberdiers, and his front line is also composed of Legionaries. No armor upgrades here, so it looks like he's going for maybe more of a numbers approach, trying to make his funds extend a little bit more, not invest too much in his mid-tiers. Got Spear Guard to the Iron Crown here, very scary unit. If you look closely, you can see there's like war paint and stuff on their helmets. Some of them have like terrible grins and stuff that have been painted on. Patrol Guard of Gothmog, Wretches of Angband on the second line, a lot of Wretches, and Valor Alcar. Another detachment here of Arbalists, some Guardians of the Iron Crown, and some more Troll Guard. Very scary. No cavalry to be seen here, but that's alright because he has teamed himself up with the premier cavalry faction for the Orcs. We have Tolin Gauderhoth commanded by Tundra's Fox. He's got a large line here of Hishbukraz Howlers. They are locked morale light infantry. They will not flee under any circumstances. They tar pit like you wouldn't believe. And that will give units here like Scarahai Longfangs an opportunity to use their throwing axes. Medium infantry. Numbers are a little bit lower than Angband, but that's to be expected since their cavalry is so powerful. And of course they have those throwing axes that they can use opportunistically to get some huge value off of a fairly cheap unit. In the back here, Scarahai Trappers. These are a javelin unit. They're a dedicated skirmishers, so they will be armor piercing. Again, a great thing to pair with the locked morale howlers. Like we've got 3 units here of Scarahai Trappers in total. Got Ash Priests. Ash Priests, I think, I try not to have too many units that are like you must take them, but Ash Priests I'm pretty comfortable with saying that they are a must-take unit. Especially if you want to win an infantry fight. If you want to go full cavalry and like save the money and maybe bring an extra company of Thrangshik Warlords, also possible if you want to issue the Ash Priest, but for most of the time, if you want to have even a decent chance in melee, the Ash Priests are pretty well essential to that endeavor. Tolin Gauderhoth has lots of numbers. They've got cheap units that can get that can be efficient when used well, but in straight up infantry fights, they are not going to win for the most part. So Ash Priests are really important. In the back here, we got Gijak Skana Zagulkalab. I promise it's not as hard to say as it looks. This is a high-tier melee cavalry. They're heavily armored, a little bit slower than some of the other units, but still very strong in close quarters. Hishbukraz Zagulkalab. They have armor-piercing javelins that also damage the morale of enemies that they strike. So very important unit to have. Throngsheik Wolfborn, very important unit here. This is actually a bodyguard unit. They inspire, they cause fear to horses, and they have an armor-piercing charge. They're also heavily armored. They can upgrade their armor. That's new in one of the patches. But they also have 2 HP, so they're a very tanky unit indeed, and one that you can get a lot of value off of. Over here we have the Laugskaras. They're unshielded medium cavalry. They're also melee cavalry, and they have an armor-piercing charge, which is something that the other units don't boast, such as the Hishpukras and the Gijakskaras. Another company here, the Laugskaras. They're also very cheap, so you can bring lots of them. You can throw them at your enemy without any fear. More Hishpukras, and then some Gijakskaras. So a very nicely well-rounded cavalry force here from Tundra's Fox. Moving on, speaking of cavalry, we have the House of Feyenoord commanded by Captain Gervais. He's brought a detachment here of the Riders of the Pass, high-tier horse archers. We've seen lots of them in the past, so I won't go into too much detail. Hunters of Kelligorm. Now, they may be lancers, but they are actually pretty good against wargs. This is an important unit for helping the Sons of Feyenoord go toe-to-toe against the massed ranks of wargs. There are obviously far less of the Sons of Feyenoord than there are of the wargs, so that's a great way to equalize the fight. I also got some mounted company here of Kuruvin. Great for preying on monsters. Great for preying on slow-moving phalanx units with their javelins, which is something that the Sons of Feyenoord can otherwise struggle with, as they have no direct counter. Also good against cavalry units, but you can use them as mobile infantry reserves as well. So a very versatile unit. Popping on over here, we have some of the Roqueni Magloro, the Knights of Maglor, the premier cavalry unit. These guys will beat the Throngsheik in a straight fight. There is no cavalry unit that they cannot take on. They're also pretty decent against monsters, and of course with their lances, they can charge down infantry like you wouldn't believe. I think in total, fully upgraded, they've got 30 or 32 charge. It's a lot. They hit hard. Be afraid of them. We have some archers of Amrod, who I am happy to say will be getting a bit of a texture upgrade to a chainmail. It's going to be a little bit more elven in the upcoming patch. I got some footmen of Amrod mixed in there as well. A bunch of companies of footmen of Amrod, a mid-tier unit for the Sons of Feyenoord. We won't talk about the House of Feyenoord just yet. Rangers of Hellevorn as well. These are dedicated skirmishers, so they are armor-piercing javelins in addition to being okay medium infantry after the fact. We have the Otorn Maitimo, the Oathsworn of Maglor, a bodyguard unit for the Sons of Feyenoord, good at keeping their units in line and fighting for extended periods. More archers, more footmen. And then in the back here we've got some stalkers. They can do very well in forested environments such as this. Their javelins, while not armor-piercing, are good against unshielded units and units without much armor or shield. And in addition, they are armor-piercing in melee, and their attack is high enough that they can actually trade fairly efficiently with Orcish infantry. So they're there mostly to build up the numbers of the Sons of Feyenoord and give them a bit of AP. Here we have the Accursed of Alcolonde. These guys are infantry blenders who are quite weak to armor-piercing, as their melee defense is not very high. They are a legendary company, so you'll only ever be able to bring one of them, but damn are they strong. And I think that's mostly it for the Sons of Feyenoord. I may be missing some of their cavalry that could be hiding in the back here, but it doesn't appear to be the case. So mostly infantry here from the Sons of Feyenoord, which is surprising. About 3 or 4 units of cavalry. Not something that you typically see from the Sons of Feyenoord, although you can do it, especially with the addition of the Accursed. It is something that you have as an option. Next we have the ally of the Sons of Feyenoord. We have Melkon here from the Knights of Turin clan, a Silmarillion dedicated clan. He's got 2 units of Bridge Wards of Nargothrond. He's got 2 archers of Talathdirnan. He's got a couple companies, I believe, of the Wardens of Nargothrond. Some defenders of Talathdirnan. He's also got the Sartort Findarato, the bodyguard of King Finrod himself. Finrod, I should say. Swordsmen of Talathdirnan detachments, who actually have armor-pierced javelins, one of the few sources of AP that the House of Feyenoord has, aside from the Wardens of Nargothrond. More defenders of Talathdirnan. I think there's another company of the detachment mixed in there as well. Arqueni Mormagilwa, good for dealing with monsters, a good pick to have against Angband. Some more defenders of Talathdirnan, and 3 companies here of the Stalkers of Taura and Faura light infantry. They can hide anywhere, they get bonuses in a bunch of different kinds of terrain, and they're a decent light infantry unit, and they've got a good charge as well. And that's pretty well going to do. The stage has been set. Oh, what do you know? We got some more cavalry over here. Did I miss them? Did I miss them? No, it's all the same. No, actually we have way more cavalry over here from Captain Gervais. Ooh. Ooh, stage is not set. The Hunters of Caligorm, Riders of the Pass, a full unit of Riders of the Pass, and more mounted company. So, very nicely rounded cavalry force. A lot of power projection here for the Sons of Feyenoord, and they have an excellent, in fact, the best, I would argue, anvil to strike their hammer against, that being the House of Feyenoord. So, now I can say with some confidence that the board is set, the pieces are moving, and let's get into this. Now, things are going to kick off early between our team and the Easterlings. You can see the Easterlings here being just a nuisance for my ally Eclipse, getting some beautiful enfilading shots here right down that phalanx. Really nothing that they can do to avoid it. Horseman of Hithlum firing into these guys. They've managed to claim the lives of several of the Salamandrine Guard, about 10 or so of them, maybe a little bit under. But now my army has begun to move up here, and we're going to try and take on the Easterlings up on fairly equal ground. I didn't want to use my army down here because A, I want to keep this cavalry hidden for as long as I can, and B, being out here, I'm very exposed. There's a lot of opportunity for both the Sons of Feyenoord cavalry and the Easterling cavalry to mop up my Assyrian elves. So, instead we opted, since our enemy had taken position up on the hill, we decided we'd fight them up here. And we're going to use some of these choke points at all, as we're able to our advantage. Eastern Horsemen, daring to get very close to my army here, so I'm going to move my spearmen out in front, try and block for them as best as I'm able to, and my 2 detachments of Skirmishers of Rath L'Oreal are basically going to be involved in a bit of a skeet shoot here. The Eastern Horsemen are, as you might have guessed by the fact that they are practically naked, are very low on armor, and they have no shield value due to the lack of a shield entirely. So they're actually going to take some pretty severe losses here. And meanwhile, most of my spear house are going to be able to block shots here for the Skirmishers of Rath L'Oreal. Because of the height differential here, which I noticed, I just put them kind of where they needed to be. I'm going to take all that on the chin. And they'll take some losses, but not much. And so Stewart is going to be obliged to pull back his cavalry here, as they are taking unsustainable losses and not really getting much in return. So that's a good idea on his end. And meanwhile, under the screen of my 4 detachment units, I've managed to get the rest of my army into position. Full companies here of Spear Hosts of Rath L'Oreal. This is this kind of central position here is where I'm expecting like the main thrust of the attack to come through. And also it does put me in a spot where I can help out my ally here a little bit as I'm able to. Salamandrine Guard here engaged alongside the Ravagers against some of the Armatad of Bladesman. And this is actually a deceptively good engagement for the Sons of not the Sons of Feyenoord, the House of Boar, the Easterlings. Because the Armatad are good, but the armor piercing and the fairly high damage on the Salamandrine Guard is going to take a toll on these units. Marines of Vignamar were able to use a close quarters javelin volley against Salamandrine Guard. They took some pretty savage heat there, but it's nothing compared to what's happening to them right now. Scouts of Galleon, Urfin, and Tower firing into the rear and flank of the Salamandrians, and they're going to start to drop like crazy. So we've managed to deal with a lot of Stewart's cavalry pretty early on, like almost in the opening engagements here. Clan Guard moving forward, heavily armored and shielded as they are. I'm not going to use any of my arrows against them. Stewart now, I think, is committed the Eastern Horsemen here to use up what remains of my ammunition from my Skirmisher of Rath L'Oreal detachments, which isn't much. They're more of a light infantry unit that happens to have a bow rather than a dedicated archer unit. Maybe I should rename them. They're Skirmishers. I don't know. But yeah, so far, things have gone, fairly decently for us. But this is an interesting development, and part of the reason why I was so afraid to fight down in the plains, because Rex has a lot of cavalry, and he has a lot of power projection. This is an FFA. You want to be planning 2, 3, 4 if you can manage it steps ahead. And so he's got a unit here of the Hunters of Caligorm marauding out and about, and looking for some opportunistic attacks against potentially our exposed rear while we fight the Easterlings. That would be bad news bears indeed. So, we want to keep him, we want to destroy this unit, keep it busy, keep it zoned out as much as we are able to. And we have some things to do that with, hopefully without revealing my cavalry. We have Lancers of Anonim Galuth, and we've also got some supporting units up here on this ridge as well. I have plenty of Spears of Osirian, and I will be able to break them off as I need to, and send them down into the plains, to the dismay of my foes. Steward marshalling his forces here for a brutal assault that will be getting underway very shortly. You can see him, he's going to split here and diverge and try and push both of these sides at once, and to be honest, against the Elves of Feyenoord, it's not a bad tactic. My infantry is mostly spears. There's a few decent like axe and mace units, but for the most part, it's spearmen. I don't have like swordsmen, for example, outside the skirmishers of Rath L'Oreal, who are just kind of okay. So in a straight fight, the Easterlings have a huge advantage, and they're not going to need to commit the same kind of numbers to push one choke point as another faction like Tolian Gowdhoth might, for example. So these guys will be able to push forward and really put pressure on me in two different areas and divide my strengths between them. So not a bad strategy. And while he's pushing forward, you can already see his ally Tommy Wiseau is around here. Yes, he's going to go around kind of the long way. And looks like he was maybe thinking about fighting the Easterlings over here, or not the Easterlings, the host of Hithlum over here. But we'll see. We'll see what he ends up doing. And pop on over to the other side of the battlefield. And we have the two Elven armies, House of Feyenoord and House of Feyenoord. Just kind of doing a little bit of maneuvering right now, looking for a space where they're comfortable to engage the Orcish alliance. And if we look out here, a lot of cavalry from Rex out in the plains. This is exactly the kind of place where the Sons of Feyenoord can be so frightening. Now if we look out here, there's a lot of arbalists escorted by some cavalry, but that was potentially a very dangerous misstep there. Now, there's enough cavalry to potentially bog down the Sons of Feyenoord, but I would argue that some aggressive action here might have thinned out these arbalist ranks before Waffles would have been able to stop them. I think the Sons of Feyenoord could have probably launched a lightning attack here to deal with as much of this cavalry as possible. But there are some full armies in close attendance, so maybe it wouldn't have been worth it. I probably would have gone for it, but then I'm suicidal and crazy when it comes to playing Silmarillion Total War, and I'm willing to do aggressive stuff like that. Horseman here from Steward of Dale, just kind of maneuvering around. Looks like Tommy Wiseau has decided to change tack, and he's not going to come around this way and fight the Hithlamites, the host of Hithlum, straight in combat, which is probably a good idea. The pikes that they have would make this a very difficult fight for him. I think it's one that he could maybe kind of win, but he's definitely playing to his enemy's strengths, and his team already has access to the hill here. So instead, they're going to move towards my position, as I am definitely the weakest link here in terms of our infantry. And so, a general charge here underway. Clan Guard, got some Warband, some other scary units here leading the way. Loch Morale Ravagers. This is going to be a hell of a fight. And down here, Steward of Dale has brought forth the Salamandrian Guard, and that peppering and the special projectile is actually doing a number on the morale of my poor Green Elves. So this is going to be a hell of a fight, and it's about to kick off as Easterlings clash with my first line of Green Elves. There's about 140 Green Elves on each side here, holding back hundreds upon hundreds of furious Easterlings. Now I've moved up some units here to kind of buffer my defense a little bit. Got some Spear Host and some Spears of Gelion and Rath L'Oreal here. Combined together, they can be a very efficient phalanx. Don't have too many of them though. I've also brought in some of my Mythern and my Urfanen Tower, who have already used some of their ammunition shooting Steward's Salamandrian Guard up there in the hill. I've also got my Scouts of Gelion in a good position where we're able to lay down enfilading fire, so we can kind of have things under control for the time being. But as we saw, the Easterling Horde is vast and ferocious, and they're already preparing a second assault here through this central gate. And meanwhile, while all of this is happening, there's a fight up on the hill. Hithlum has moved against the Easterlings, and they're slowly but surely managing to make some progress. Sons of Wolfang, rather, on the front lines. But their armor piercing is not going to avail them too much. They really get a lot done off the charge, and their base damage is about average. And the House of Feyenoord specializes highly in melee defense. This is actually not the best engagement for them. Salamandrians up on the hill there, trying to cause a mass rout, firing down at the poor exposed flank of the host of Hithlum. And they're kind of struggling here a little bit. It's beginning to turn against them. Ooh, wow, that's ballsy. That's a hell of a shot from downtown against the Salamandering Guard, but it's going to be enough to convince Tommy Wiseau that maybe he should be elsewhere. And it looks like these Salamanders are actually out of ammunition entirely, so they're going to pull out their Kopesh and look around for some targets to engage in melee. And now, the Easterling assault has begun on the second gate. Eastron Horseman firing point blank into my Scouts of Gelion. That's going to hurt. They don't like it. Neither do the Urfinen Tower. Most of my units are very unshielded and lightly armored. And so a unit like that can be particularly devastating when I don't have an immediate answer. My Urfinen Tower here trying to shoot, trying to do something, but they actually don't have the greatest angle here, which is something I unfortunately didn't notice. And the Easterlings are pouring through in their hundreds, and they are renewing their assault on the other side, so I'm going to be obliged to move out with some of my spear host of Gelion and Rathloriel and try and hold the line over there. Meanwhile, I've committed my Mythron and Tolgalen. They're going to take some light casualties there from the storing axes, but they're heavy enough and shielded enough that, unlike most Green Elf units, they will be able to hold the line. Definitely want a screenshot of this. Oh, it's beautiful. That's definitely going in the thumbnail, assuming that it works. Chieftain's Honor Guard pushing forward, and they're going to be enough to turn the tide here. Green Elves are winning this quite handily, but that skirmish fire and the addition of this high-tier bodyguard unit are going to be too much for us to handle. Easterlings far too hot for me to handle in this fight. Eastron Marauders here, managing to get off a volley into my poor and shielded spear host of Gelion, and they're going to take horrendous casualties in the face of that. I'm going to be forced to move them forward now. Got the Eastron Marauders at least engaged in close quarters with my Urfinen Tower. Over here, though, I have my Urfinen Tower in battle as well. They weren't able to use all of their ammunition, which sucks for me. And the Halberdiers have arrived. This is bad news, Bears. I'm going to have to use my my missile units efficiently in order to hold them back. Clan Guard of Lothland starting to lose steam a little bit in the face of the mass ranks of my Green Elves. Lancers of Anonin Galuth doing their thing. And charging at against the Eastron Horsemen. And it's something I forgot to mention, actually. That House of Feyenoord unit, the Lancers, they ended up getting caught out and destroyed, unfortunately for them. So now my enemies know our cavalry is here, sort of. I have an idea that I have some cavalry, but I've rearranged them. We actually managed to destroy a unit of Salamander Guard over here as well. We're trying to flank around, and so Steward of Dale has lost that important unit. Hunters of Rathloriel being maneuvered into position to try and support the failing Green Elf line. Things aren't looking great for us. And while things kind of rest in the balance here, let's pop over to the other side as we can see that both teams kind of lined up here. They're getting ready for some fighting. This is going to be a hell of a scrap. There's a lot of elves here arrayed out in the field. But their numbers pale in comparison to the overwhelming horde of the Orcs of Angband and Tolin Gaudahoth. Both sides kind of staring each other down for now. We'll see what the ultimate outcome of this ends up being. We're going to keep a close eye on that for sure. Popping back over to the other side. Easterlings are beginning to make headway. I have managed to stop them in a few different places, but over here you can see my line beginning to bulge as even the Mythron and Tolgalen are ill-equipped to hold back the Clan Guard and the heavily armored units from the Easterlings of Boar. Chieftain's Honor Guard doing very well here against my Mythron and Tolgalen. Reinforcements are definitely going to be needed if we're going to hold on to this. Pardon me. But I only have so many reserves, right? I've got Scouts of Gelion in the back trying to do their best, but the Easterlings over here are just so scary. So some infantry has been committed by the House of Fingolfin. 2 units here of the Herdsmen of Hithlum. They're going to be very, very important in dealing with some of these heavily armored units. Salamanderine Guard getting a nice charge here. But they're also going to get countercharged by the Herdsmen of Hithlum. And that's not going to go well for them. Cavalry definitely needs to fear shock infantry if they have a chance to countercharge them. And so the Salamanderines from Tommy Wiseau are going to lose about half their number, a little bit more actually. More Halberdiers coming in. Eastron Marauders here from Steward of Dale. Doing a number on my poor spear host of Gelion. Thinning out my ranks. Got some Javelins coming in here trying to deal with the Halberdiers of Lothland. They are a big threat. Missiles passing each other overhead as we both kind of vie and jockey for position. My poor Hunters of Rathloriel here taking some shots from the front from the Eastern Horsemen. That'll be fine, but I didn't actually realize that they were the target of the Eastern Horsemen, so I'm going to turn them around and try and use them to pick on some of the Ravagers here and other such units. Although I think they're now out of ammunition, so they're going to actually join their brothers on the front line. Skirmishers on the verge of collapse, even with the support of the Mythron and Togalen. And over here, on my right, my line is basically collapsed, and the Easterlings have basically free reign to flood through. I brought forward some of my centers of Gelion to try and lay down some enfilading fire, and so far so good. They're going after the Pillagers. They're managing to do decent damage to the Pillagers and to the Clan Guard from the rear. But there's just too many of them, and not enough Green Elves to go around. This Chieftain's Honor Guard here, taking down the chin from my Scouts of Gelion. I don't know if I'm firing directly into the Chieftain's Honor Guard, or if I'm trying to shoot the units behind them and it just happens to be going through there. But I'm going to pull back with my Hunters of Rathloriel as I realize that this particular area is just lost. So I'm going to pull back and try to reform. I think I'm actually trying to cut these guys off. And if I can crash into them, which I will successfully do, and get them to turn, then I will be able to do some damage to them from the flank with my waiting Scouts of Gelion. Nice charge here against the Chieftain's Honor Guard from my Outriders of Dweilwyn. Don't want to leave them in there for too long, however, as they will start to fall away. Each things have broken through over here with some Clan Guard, and they're looking to disrupt my skirmish line. Hunters of Rathloriel, second company of them have been brought in. They are going to get off a volley into the tightly packed ranks of the Easterlings here. And we're doing our best. We're using our skirmishing units well, but we are just being overwhelmed in melee, which is certainly a danger when you play the Green Elves. The rest of my army pushing forward. We're actually managing to repulse them in a few places. See, the Easterlings have taken just hideous losses here, and that's mostly due to my ally Eclipse coming in and saving my bacon. But Tommy Wiseau's army is still pretty healthy. There's a lot more infantry yet to come. My general actually starts to flee from the field here, believe it or not. Some cavalry there from the Orcs, moving in behind the position of the Houses of Feyenoord and Feyenoord. Not too much going on here, but you can see some movement on the left wing of the combined Orcish army. That's scary. This is an army, dare I say, meant to destroy the world of elves. They're going to push forward, deal with some of the cavalry. Looks like we have some cavalry action out here. They've managed to kind of corner a lot of these Tolan Gaudhoth units. The Gijak Skada Zagulkalab will stand up to that well from the front. Gishbul Kraz Zagulkalab, however, are easy prey for these fast-moving Riders of the Pass. But now, with renewed vigor, they're going to surge forward. Reinforcements in the form of the Laugskaraz coming down, and there's a big movement here on the part of Angband. Halberdiers, Trolls, Balrogs, and they're going to bully the Sons of Feyenoord cavalry right out of the plains if they're allowed to. So the chase continues. Riders of the Pass stopping, letting off a volley into the Laugskaraz. Didn't actually seem to do too much to them there. They have decent armor. They've got about 7 armor to the 6 missile damage of the Riders of the Pass. I think a second volley there is actually going to do quite a decent amount of damage to them, though. Those javelins are nearby, and you can see the fiery projectiles that they use. You gonna get anybody? No. Very narrowly missed the back of one of those Riders of the Pass. They're going to continue to fire as these guys give chase. Looks like some of the mounted company have used their ammunition, and they're going to charge in here and look to get a piece of these Laugskaraz. It's a dangerous one. They are very exposed to the Hishbokraz. I don't think I would have taken this engagement. Ooh, it looks like the Gijak Skada is coming in from behind. Maybe it'll be worth it as these Hunters of Kelegorm charge in and smash apart these Laugskaraz. There's some friendly fire in there as well. I wouldn't expect them to stand too long, and more and more cavalry units just pile in. We've also got some Trolls here as well with Trollguard of Gothmog. So the Sons of Feyenoord are going to be forced to retreat, taking fairly substantial losses, and oh no, these Hunters of Kelegorm, through the presence of all these wargs, the fear, and the morale debuff from those Hishbukraz, they're actually going to rout here, and they're going to be pretty well destroyed. So that's both of his units of Hunters of Kelegorm that have been annihilated at this point. That's a big loss for the Sons of Feyenoord. He does still have the Rookwenny, but the Hunters are a big, important part of fighting wargs, and they're extremely potent against infantry as well. So he managed to escape. Quite a lot of losses there. Mounted Company lost nearly half their number. And now we've seen a general retreat here as the elves realize that they're going to be overwhelmed if they stay there any longer. And they're going to begin to pull back. Pop on over to the other side now, where both of our armies are essentially breaking themselves against each other, but the Easterlings have pushed through my position with relative ease, and now I've had to commit some of my cavalry here to trying to stem the tide. Some decent charges here from the Outriders of Bladesman. We're yielding some results, but there's a lot of polearms and a lot of spears here, and Stewart of Dale is an experienced player, so he doesn't usually let me get some cheeky charges like this, but this time I was lucky enough. A good charge into the rear of these guys. It's going to hurt, and it'll bring them down to nearly the verge of routing, but I can't afford to leave my Riders of Bladesman in there for too long. I'm going to continue to cycle them in and out. Battle lines have essentially broken down, as some of the host of Hithlum are making a stand here alongside the Green Elves, my spear host, and I think there's maybe some other spearmen that are mixed in there as well, doing their best. Spear hosts of Rath L'Oreal are also kind of partially surrounded. They're helping to squeeze the Halberdiers of Lothland in between them and the spear host of Gelion. But it's just a nightmare here. You see some of the Easterlings, looks like they're starting to pull back now, as the host of Hithlum is getting the better of them, at least on their end. The Clan Guard here on the verge of routing, as these Bladesmen just bravely charged in there, and we could see some mass routing take place from this little pocket. Help is on the way. Wardens have turned around from Tommy Wiseau, and looks like, yes, more Wardens. No, it's all just one unit. They're going to move in and charge against the rear of the Bladesmen, and it's going to hurt. They may be spearmen, and they may be at a disadvantage against swordsmen, but nonetheless, attacking from the rear will always yield results. So the Bladesmen are going to turn around and charge into the Wardens, and they're going to have a nice little hill advantage there, and these guys have now broken, and the host of Hithlum will be able to sweep the Easterling right wing and hopefully come to my aid before my army here is destroyed. I've still got some skirmishers left over. I've got Urfin and Tower. These are the guys that got caught out and didn't get a chance to use their ammunition earlier. They're now able to fire freely into the rear of the Halberdiers of Lothland. I'm trying to stay away from these polearms as much as I can, because they are infantry blenders. Hunters here doing their best to hold back the tide. Cavalry, a fierce cavalry struggle going on in the back lines. We've got some of the Lancers of Anonin Galuth coming over to help me out. I've just charged my Outriders of Dweilwyn here, who are spear cavalry, into these horse archers. They're going to wipe them out in short order. Then we'll be able to go for some free, cheeky charges from the rear against the Chieftain's Honor Guard. If we could snipe out their general here, that would be the end, I think, of Stewart of Dale's army. This is kind of the last pocket of resistance from him. Most of the Easterlings still remaining belong to Tommy Wiseau. Going for a charge here, but I think Tommy's going to see it. He is not, perhaps, but he will turn around some of his halberdiers. That's going to hurt. My Outriders of Dweilwyn really committed hard to that. Some damage was done, but it's a desperate, desperate struggle here. Lancers of Anonin Galuth going for a nice little charge here against the rear of the Clan Guard, trying to break them. But it's ugly so far. I got my Sentries of Gelion, who are now out of ammunition. Wow, that really struggled with that. I think they used all their ammunition shooting into the rear of these Easterlings, but it's bloody. It's apocalyptic is the best way to describe this. Both armies are essentially exterminating each other. No one has a truly clear advantage except for Hithlum over here, and now the Easterlings have begun to pull that back a little bit. Bladesman and Barrett Ithel lining up for another big charge here, and up on the hill, with heavy loss, they've managed to push all the way up the hill here against two separate armies. First against Stewart and then against Tommy Wiseau's reinforcements. But the Easterlings are actually beating them up here. Even with the addition of the Arimo Arantar, they will slaughter their way through these medium infantry. But the numbers of the Easterlings are just so great that this isn't a fight that the host of Hithlum is really equipped to win. Let's pop on over to the other side here. Looks like...
Our general shames us all.
Ooh, some cavalry action. Roqueni Magloro surrounded and beset by a sea of wargs. But honestly, they could cut their way through this pretty easily. We're looking at a potentially heavy defeat here for the cavalry of Tolin Gaurhoth, assuming that they can maybe get some more cavalry in behind them. I'm not sure whose general that was. It might have been my general who wandered over here and ended up getting captured. That's kind of funny if that's the case. More mounted company coming in, trying to surround the wargs here, and on their own, these skilled elven cavalrymen would smash their way through. But the troll guard are already on their way, and they're going to rip through the lines of the cavalrymen. Now would be a good time to maybe bring some javelins forward. See some stalkers here, Rangers of Feyenoord. Yeah, as I say it, Rex already has the idea. And this is a blob that could potentially be punished. The troll guard are very tightly packed here. There's some heavily armored spearmen in here as well that'll keep them in place. He needs to line them up. Rangers of Feyenoord really going for it, but I think the Angband and Tolingauerhof players kind of realize their danger. They're going to pull back. But look at that exchange there. The Roquetti Maglor are just so powerful in close quarters. There's a lot of dead wargs. And the advance of Angband is going to be rebuffed. And they're going to suffer more losses from the foot archers as they move to retreat. But they're going to follow that up with a horde of infantry. Very disorganized for now. But there's not really anything that's nearby that can take advantage of that. Oh man, those poor hunters. That was really tragic. Let's pop back over to the other side. We're going to come back here very shortly as things are winding down on this northern front. And the Easterlings, against all odds here, at least down in the valley, have largely been wiped out. Their bodyguard is over here. Or somewhere near here. My Scouts of Gillian are actually armor piercing and melee, so they're not terrible against Easterling infantry. There's still this little Chieftain's Honor Guard here, which I think has boar in it. Yeah, that's their generic general model here. That's something we'll have to change in the future. I don't want to lose my riders, but I think they kind of get caught here. Some of them might die. Yeah, one of them's going to go down. Stewart being very aggressive with his bodyguard. But as long as they're chasing my cavalry, they're not pressuring my Scouts of Gelion. Some of them are down to 22. Really suffered heavily at the hands of these Easterling infantrymen, but nonetheless, will slowly emerge victorious. Now Tommy Wiseau is looking to surround one of the last bastions of resistance down here. Bladesmen are doing well. I've got my Erdefenden tower that I've committed, and they're actually destroying these guys. As you would expect, these halberdiers are going to move in and try and encircle my units in turn. Hopefully I have the presence of mind to turn these guys around. And it looks like I do. So they're not going to just get attacked from the rear by some deadly halberdiers. They are going to charge forth and do what they do best. Hit these guys hard, try to surround them, and finish them off. And now more and more of the victorious Hitler units are pushing forward, and we will be able to turn that battle around. Up here, though, it's a nightmare. It's a slaughterhouse. Ooh, this is sneakiness. So I activated my second company of the Outriders of Dweilwind, getting a nice rear charge here against the Marauders. Halberdiers trying to chase them down. These guys are going to continue to try and be as fluid as they are able to in this very enclosed area. Ooh, some of these guys will get caught out by the Halberdiers and devoured almost immediately. And now the Host of Feyenoord was kind of bringing it back for a little bit, but now the tide is beginning to turn against them again, and I really want this Chieftain's Honor Guard. If I can get him, I'll take him. These Halberdiers from Tommy Wiseau are being a real pain. So some great anti-cavalry kind of dancing, I guess you could call it, from Tommy Wiseau. He really gave me a lot of trouble in this. Marauders of Himring. They had to flee from here if they didn't want to get annihilated, but he's going to use that as an opportunity to attack the Host of Hithem from the rear. And seeing this, I'm going to have to do something. So I'll move these cavalrymen forward. We're going to continue to try and cycle charges in and out. You'll see what ends up happening up there. But now, the host of Angband and Tolingauerhof are pushing forward. And they're actually in a pretty, I would say, deceptively weak position. So it looks like we have some fights going on out here. Cavalry. We'll take a look at that in just a moment. But to finish that thought, a lot of these units are really tired. They've just run across the plains. Some of the wretches are already exhausted without actually having ever gotten into close quarters. So they have the numbers, and they have a lot of very, very strong units remaining, like the Troll Guard, like the Balrog Guard, etc., etc. halberdiers as well. You can see them making up the rear. Lots of arbalists. But against fresh elven units, this entire army is seriously in danger of just bouncing off of the front line. So we're going to have to see what the orcs are able to do to keep themselves in the fight here. Stalkers of Talon and Fauroth being brought forward to kind of block the advance of the Spear Guard, probably to stop them from getting in here and helping out the cavalry. And Rex so far is holding his own. The Throng Sheik are in there, but so are the Roqueni Magloro. But again, excellent teamwork here from Waffles. Trollguard of Gothmog in close attendance, and they're going to be around to lend some support. And if the Sons of Feyenoord cavalry gets caught out here, that's going to be the end of it. There's not much left at this point. There's a couple companies here of the Mounted Company of Kudufin, and they're holding their own as best as they're able. But against Trollguard, they will get destroyed. There's no Lancers left. The Roqueni Magloro down to less than half. Things are not looking good. Big javelin volley here from not too sure who. Probably Stalkers of Thargelion. Against the Ironshod Legionnaires, it will actually, you know, there's a possibility that they can kill them. It's not bad. Now the Stalker is going to toss another one in there. I think they might be out of ammunition at this point. No, they're loading up for another one. And a general charge going down here from the Elves. Probably should have spread these guys out a bit more so they don't get surrounded. But there's a second unit coming in here, and they're just going to overwhelm these guys with sheer brute force. The Ironshod Legionnaires don't have a chance there. And the Sons of Feyenoord are formed up alongside the finest phalanx, I would say, in the game so far. That being Nargothrond. And they're taking a beating from all those archers. Archers, javelins, everything that they can leverage. All coming forward right now. This is a lot of armor-piercing javelin fire being thrown down range. Looks like two companies here of the Swordsmen of Talath DINEN detachment with their armor-piercing javs. Up here, the Elves are pushing hard against the Howlers. They're going to win that every day. And that looks like the death of an Easterling general, so let's pop back on over there now. That would be, I believe, Stewart of Dale's general. Up here, my cavalry has escaped. They've taken fairly substantial losses, about 2/5 of their number. And Tommy Wiseau has won the hill, essentially. With great losses. There's not much of the Easterlings left, and I think Stewart of Dale has been completely eliminated down here. So the Easterling team is on its last legs, but we're not looking much better. This is probably the largest amount of infantry that the House of Fingolfin has remaining. I'm down to 26 Urfin and Tower, some cavalry, and basically no infantry. All of my good infantry units, aside from that minor, the kind of scraps of my Urfin and Tower unit and some Scouts of Gelion, have been destroyed. This was destructive in the extreme for both sides. Now it's just going to be a lot of maneuvering and a lot of preparing themselves to push Tommy Wiseau off this hill. Because we have the numbers at least to do that, but that's going to further reduce our forces to basically ragged ribbons. So let's pop back on over here, as this is where things are going to get real fun. Let's kick it up to full speed. Footmen of Amaras supporting the Nargothrond phalanx. And this is brutal. Bulldogs charging in, but against the pikemen, they're going to have a hard time. Out here in the woods, you can see some infantry have been brought forward, some Rangers of Helleborn, probably out of ammunition. They will slice their way through the Hispulkuraz. But I think they're just hammering, these Trollguard are just hammering their way through what's left of the Roqueni Magloro. Trollguard now very tired, and there's maybe a few cavalrymen left in here. Ah, we have the Vorbak Gazutar as well, the legendary company for the Wolves of Tolin Gaurahoth. Didn't see them because they were able to hide anywhere. But they're actually locked morale, and they have a good charge bonus. They're not armor-piercing like the Laugskaraz that they're a sort of alternate version of. But they're good in forests, and they're very, very fast. This is exactly where you'd want to have them. Battle Raukar have been brought over here, and they're going to smash their way through these poor Rangers of Helleborn. They definitely came to the wrong party. Not enough support here for this unit, so they're just getting thrown under the bus, essentially. And this is a problem. Now, if we look, it's like some of the mounted company here are making a last stand. Some of the mounted bowmen are in there as well, just trying to delay as best as they're able to. But here's why this is a problem. Ooh, that's nasty. Charge here into the rear of the Stalkers of Talon and Fauroth. The Elves here are winning heavily in the center. The Orcs are getting slaughtered. They're already beginning to rout. This is a nightmare engagement for them. They're all tired. Ooh, man, look at the scale of this. More infantry being brought in to try and kind of even things out. But this is a fight that the elves are going to win every day. And they're massacring their way through the orcs. But this is their saving grace. This is all of the power of the orcish factions converging on one side. We have Thrang Sheik, we have Valor Raukar, we've got Trollguard, and they've swept the Sons of Feyenoord cavalry basically from the field. There's one Knight of Maglor left, and they're already beginning to roll up the line. So this is where the elves could win or lose this battle. Let's see what happens. I think they realize that. Melkon putting up a valiant defense here with the Sartor Finderato and the Wardens of Nargothrond. There's some Otorn Maitimo out here as well, and some Archers of Amarod with the limited cavalry support that still remains to the Sons of Feyenoord. They're doing well. Thrangshi Wolfborn are not going to want to stay in that for too long. Otorn Maitimo giving chase. The Balrogs charging into the rear, breaking the Stalkers of Thargelion. And the Accursed of Alcolonde are here as well. One thing to note about them is that they cannot be stunned. So the Balrogs' attacks are going to have no effect on stunning them whatsoever, but the Balrogs are armor-piercing, which is something that these Accursed definitely fear for sure. And this is where things are starting to go pear-shaped. Some Wretches and some other kind of unimportant reinforcements being brought in for numbers and for support. And this is where the elves are really struggling. They need to hold this back. They need to throw everything that they have in reserve at this. Otherwise, bad things are going to happen. They're definitely winning hard in the center. Those pikemen are basically unstoppable from the front against what the orcs have to fight them with. More and more routing. So it's a matter of time here. Are they going to be able to smash through this phalanx and through that elven right wing in time? Or what's going to happen? Sartor Finderato and the Wardens out here fighting the Spear Guard. There's some Archers of Amarod, some Otor and Maitimo, so a valiant effort being made by the elves to surround and destroy what remains here. The Sartor being pulled out for some reason, possibly being used to go after these units here and provide some support. Ooh, and the orcs have managed to break through. And now they're into the phalanx. There's some Guardians of the Iron Crown, which are macemen. There's some Bulldogs here. This is everything that they need to punch through. So I can understand why Melkon would want to bring Sartor Finderato in here. Hold the line for as long as he can. Over here they've managed to surround and will ultimately destroy a large number of this Orcish infantry. They're going to rout off the Wretches. That'll be no problem. They're going to take down the Spear Guard as well. The Spear Guard will hold out for quite some time. Vorback Gajutar getting a piece of the Riders of the Pass. Thrangshi Wolfborn still fairly healthy. I think the Vorback are having a great time right now. They're still extremely healthy as well. Their charge value is quite high. Ooh, so they're targeting down the Archers of Amarod here. Hopefully Gervais sees it and turns around. If he doesn't... Oh, he is going to see it. Alright, he's fine. But from the rear, the Vorback would have just run those archers over. From the front, they'll take some casualties, but not nearly as many. The Vorback are going to be pulled out again and cycled back. The Accursed of Alcolonde, they should probably be brought forward, but they are kind of cut off a little bit from the Hishpokras. Or by the Hishpokras Howlers. Meanwhile, the Trolls and the Valor Aukar with their high mass can just move fluidly through these formations. And there goes one of the generals. That might be exactly what the Doctor ordered here. Ooh, no, those are Ash Priests there. Tossing their fiery payloads. Scything through the elves. That's gonna hurt. They'll probably cook some of the Balrogs too, though. A lot of friendly fire there. But they are getting a piece of the Bridge Wards, who are far more numerous. And there's some routing here. These units are going to push forward kind of normally. It's an easy thing to miss. But reserves are being brought forward to catch these footmen out, and they're going to be destroyed. Yeah. Things are really in the balance here. The elves are starting to lose out just by sheer numbers over on this wing as well. So now things are starting to get dire on both wings for the elves, and their center, which was doing so well, is just being crushed. Marks of Nargothrond, the Arquini Mormagilwa, however, over here may have something to say about that, and they may be able to pull it back. Let's take one last glance at how they're doing over here. Looks like they've managed to destroy most of those Orcish units, and they're surrounding the Spear Guard here. But the Spear Guard are going to hold out for a very long time. Let's pass over to the other side and we'll witness the end here for Tommy Wiseau and his army. They have fought valiantly. My Outriders of Dweilwyn lost about 3/5 of their number. Sentries of Gelion pushing down here, trying to go after the Wardens of Lothland. We got here just in time. There goes Tommy Wiseau's general. We've managed to break through his front line, but it cost us. It cost us even more of our troops. And this is just a graveyard. This whole area is a graveyard for about 4 armies. Super destructive. I'm going to pop over here and witness what appears to be the end for the elves of Feyenoord and House of Feyenoord. What started out so well, unfortunately, has ended in a great disaster. The elves here fighting hard, doing their best to hold up the forces of Morgoth for as long as they're able to. And it's pretty destructive. The orcs here are winning, but there are some areas where the elves are still strong. Sartor Findorado and the Wardens of Nargothrond rallying around their lord. Still some accursed over here, a fair amount of them, hacking their way through the orcs. So it's possible that the elves will be able to pull this back. Maybe. Well, the rest of these units here struggling to destroy the spear guard. If they can rout them quickly and then turn things around and then rally together, they'll turn things around. But devastating rear charge there from the Vorbak Gajutar. It's gonna rip its way through the Sartor Findorado, and the Wardens of Nargothrond will be reduced down to next to nothing. And unfortunately, the rest of the Elven army will not have an opportunity to link up with their comrades. In the center here, it looks like House of Feyenoord is going to see it, but unfortunately Finarfin is going to take that one hard on the chin, and the low melee defense is going to play against the Accursed of Alcalonde here, who will not be able to block that charge as effectively as other units. It's brutal. The elves have managed to win in certain areas, but oh yeah. Arbalists here as well, focusing down the Accursed, and it seems as though the forces of Morgoth will be able to pick apart their foes one at a time and defeat them in detail, which fairly accurate to how the story of the Silmarillion ultimately plays out. Another devastating charge here. I think that's from the Farang Sheik. Oh, that's gonna hurt. And all the while they're being peppered down and held in place by these wretches. Another deadly volley of crossbows ripping through these guys, and I think we're going to start to see some routing here. Yep, the Stalkers of Talad and Falroth are gone. Second company thinking about running. The Accursed will stay and fight for a very long time, but it is possible for them to rout as well. And now these Thrangshik just ping-ponging back and forth. And this is something you need to pay attention to when you are playing. And Melkon is a little bit newer, but you want to turn your units around. Don't let them get charged from the rear, especially not by armor-piercing units. Goes right to their armor value, which is the main defense of the Wardens of Nargothrond. Whereas if you turn around, that unit will get its melee defense bonus from the front, so it will not take nearly as much damage. And you can also countercharge the cavalry and deal some damage to them in turn. But it looks like basically everywhere the elves are being beaten down. There was a few glimmers of hope for them, and there still might be. The Arquenimor and Magilwa are here, alongside the Marksmen of Nargothrond. It looks like some archers have managed to escape the ruin of their army, and they're laying down some fire. So we've actually beaten the Easterlings, so I've moved forward with my Sentries of Gelion, and I'm going after the Ash Priests. I definitely want to get a piece of those Ash Priests. As is a free-for-all, the elves here are not technically my allies in the sense that we're on the same team, but they're more allies of convenience. And a big threat to what remains to us, which is not much, is the Ash Priests. I said it in the introduction to this video, and I'll say it again. The Ash Priests are devastatingly powerful. Outriders of Dweilwyn getting a decent charge here against some of the Arbalists, managing to kill probably about 30 or 40 of them. But now the orcs are alerted to our presence, and they're going to move to counter us. And unfortunately, we weren't able to get over here in time to have any tangible effect on how this turned out. It looks like some of the Accursed here are pulling out of that fight and trying to rally with what remains. And there are still some elves here. Some decent units as well. Otor and Mightymo, Wardens of Nargothrond. But these Spearguard have just held out like real troopers and prevented the elves from linking up their forces. but for the most part they have been defeated. Marshal of Nargothrond here getting charged to death. The Arquini Morn Gilwa down to next to nothing, thanks to some nasty charges here from the Throwing Cheek Wolfborn. And now the Archers of Amarod, some of the last vestiges of the Sons of Feyenoord army, about to get charged down. We're back Gajutar, getting a nice charge here. And it's gonna hurt. Those archers are gonna take it on the chin. I've repositioned my sentries of Gelion in order to allow me to fire more directly into the Hbokraz Ash Priest. We're gonna see the big weakness of this unit here. It's 3 HP, it is a monster in melee, it's a total wrecking ball, can't be stunned, but arrows. Arrows are their bane. We're going to continue to deal damage to them. Charge here from the rear by my Outriders of Dweilwyn into the Skadahai and into the Ash Priest. Is going to see the end of that unit. Probably not worth it. But the Ash Priests have now been heavily reduced down to next to nothing. They were full strength a while ago, and now they're down to 12. So that's a lot of HP damage that we managed to do to them. Ah, that famous bug. They got hit so hard that they just got booted into another dimension. Now they're going to get planted into the ground like Grim Totems. Nice shot there against Vorback Gajutar. More lightly armored than the Laugskaraz. They do have a shield, and that will impact them, I think, on their shielded sides, so they'll stand up to that decently. I got some hidden sentries of Gelion there who are unfortunately out of ammunition. My other sentry unit is just kind of out in the field. I still have some ammo, so I'm trying to go after the Vorback Gajutar, as they can potentially be a problem for us. But I think maybe I've got one volley left here. Oh, a nasty charge from the rear against the Archers of Amarod. It's going to see them off. And now my troops are completely out of ammunition. Other sentry unit has been revealed. I was going to maybe try and go after the Vorback Gajutar. Didn't seem like it was worth it. Nice charge here into the back of the Long Fangs, though. He's going to kill off a decent amount of them. They are exhausted, so I was hoping maybe we could cause some routing, but my sentries need to get out of there ASAP. Especially with the presence of those wargs as well. And they're actually going to, I think, go down to Shaken there. Briefly. Maybe not. I saw another opportunity here. Ironshot Arbalists who are just kind of shaken and exhausted out in the field. If I can get a charge against them, this whole blob could flee immediately. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have the opportunity, and I don't want to lose my sentries. Oh, no, I am actually going to go for it. Figured it was worth it. Alright. I'm going to hit those Arbalists really hard, and that's going to cut through about half their number. But they're going to drop from steady to routing in just a few minutes. And unfortunately, the wargs were busy chasing another unit. So the Vorback Gajutar are trying to hunt down my sentries of Gelion. Normally they are way faster than us, but we're actually at a better fatigue kind of state than they are, so we'll be able to skirt away from them. But if they were behind this unit of sentries of Gelion, they would have been completely annihilated. Decent damage there to the Arbalists, and another battlefield where things are just disgusting. The last of the elves here, driving against the hosts of Angband and Tolin Gaurhoth. Ultimately, they will meet the same fate as the rest of their army, being surrounded and beaten down. Otorn fighting their hardest. These wardens doing their best as well. So it looks like there's some halberdiers and some other nasty things in there, which is a hard thing for the Sons of Feyenoord to fight from the front. With some bulldogs, Valaraukar, and that's basically all she wrote for them. Well, my sentries here are going to be able to grab some of the Arbalists, maybe rout them. No, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a good enough piece of them there that we'd be able to rout them. My other unit of sentries will come back from routing, and I will have 2 units of cavalry at my disposal moving in to this late stage. I saw an opportunity to maybe swamp the Vorback Gajutar. Tundra's Fox, I think, saw what I was doing, tried to pull them out of there. So I pulled them out just at the time when he decided he would turn around and try and fight me. And so, sentries, both companies of them, tired. They've done as much as they could in defense of their kinsmen, and they can do nothing but watch as the remnants of the Feyenoord and the Finarfin armies are slaughtered by the greatest of the Elfbanes, the Valaraukar.
The enemy army flees the field.
That's basically it. That unit there is going to run. The Sons of Feyenoord general will be not long for this world as well.
guard him well and make it so he can see us defeat the rest of his army.
And so we're in trouble here. There's a lot of numbers. They've still got cavalry. They've got bulldogs. They've got half a unit of Valoralkar. So I'm going to pull back my Sentries of Gelion. And there's a few things to note in this battle. The Orcish generals, I believe, are both dead. Or at least the Angband unit is. The Wretches are exhausted. Most of their army is exhausted, but they definitely have the numbers and the composition here to destroy us. And if you look at our army is in a very similar state. See if I can find what remains of them here. I think they're all down here. Yeah. Winded, very tired, exhausted, tired. There's not much here. There's some pikes. There's some pikemen. I said pikes already. There's the Bladesman, and there's a tiny little unit of Marines here, and I think he's still got his general. He's got one unit, or one individual left in there. Adima Adantar. So the High King himself still leads his forces, but everyone is exhausted. And now our opponents are going to take a little bit of a break here and try and let their army rest a little bit. But we'll see how that works out for them. So they're trying to maybe shoot at some routing units, but I'm going to go ahead and fast forward just for a few minutes, and I'll see you guys very shortly. Alright, and now we are underway. Well, let me talk a little bit about this. I think that they've allowed their army a little bit of time to rest, but if you look at the state of them, most of them are still exhausted. I believe there's some Ash Priests left. 10 of them. Thank goodness I managed to kill that unit, otherwise... ugh. This would be a foregone conclusion. But a lot of these units are still pretty well exhausted. The Orcs don't regenerate fatigue very well, and the Wretches, which compose the vast majority of their remaining numbers, don't regenerate fatigue at all, because they don't have a fatigue trait. Their more powerful units will. The Valoralkar will. They're fresh again, instead of very tired, I think, as they were previously. The Hishbrokar's Ash Priests are fresh. I know there's some Bulldogs in there somewhere, and they're only tired, but they've come out from exhausted, I believe. But you look at the state of their army, and then you look at ours. All of our troops here are fresh. These guys have gone back from being exhausted, very tired. Pretty well all of our units are fresh. And that, I think, was a very grave miscalculation on the part of the Orcish players. But that being said, they still have numbers here. They've got some scary-ass numbers, but I want to just get a little look at this. Fingolfin himself, the High King, out in front of his army. Very bold and very brazen. We're going to go ahead, we're going to fast forward things just a little bit here. They have some imposing numbers still remaining. Halberdiers, a ton of Spear Guard, lots of Wretches to make up numbers. They've still got Arbalists, and I think some of the Arbalists still have ammunition too. Legionnaires, Ash Priests, there's still some Tolling Gauderhoth infantry in there as well. Bulldogs now winded. They're having a great time. Still got some cavalry, Vorback Gajutor. Some Thrangshik Wolfborn, not many. They're gonna go right out front here. Maybe challenging the High King to a duel. Well, he's having none of it. Eclipses both his officers and his few remaining units now back behind his line. And these Sentries of Hithlum are now only tired. They come from being exhausted. See a general advance here. And these units begin to push themselves uphill, and there is still a couple of things to note. Can't see... oh, no, you actually can see them. I still have some cavalry still remaining. I kind of expected they'd come up the hill here in order to come from behind us and smash us. So that's why I put my cavalry in here behind them. They probably wouldn't win a straight fight with the Gauderhoth cavalry, but they might reduce their numbers and hold them up for long enough. Down goes those spears. Sentries of Hithlum prepare for this final confrontation. And now, seeing this, we're actually going to take to the offensive, believe it or not. I saw he brought his cavalry out front here, so I don't have to worry about them coming from behind me too much. I'm going to take my Sentries of Gelion,
And they're going to lead the charge here. Straight downhill. Got the Orcs of Tolian Gaudhoth. I'm going to take down a few of them. There's a Throng Sheik who's in there, trying to get a piece of my horse archers. They don't like it. They're going to flee. But thankfully, the Bladesman Baradythal still have pretty stable morale. Their host of Hithlum is not many, but they have stable morale due to the presence of their lord and leader. My sentries are going to descend. My scouts of Gelion are going to push down as well, and this is ugly. Now, important thing here. My scouts on the front lines. I don't have a general. My general is gone, so you can see these units probably won't stick around for too long. Sentries of Gelion moving to try and block the Valoralkar, prevent them from breaking through here, but they're still going to make it in. And my scouts already on the verge of routing. If they rout, they could cause a wave of fear. So this is when I throw my Urfanen Tower, who are now fresh. And these battered Balrogs are going to take heavy, heavy losses in the face of that charge. They've been involved in a lot of fighting so far, so they're quite low on HP. So holding them in reserve was something I knew I needed to do, because I needed to get a charge off to try and deal with as many of the Balrogs as possible. But this is where the fatigue starts to come in. The wretches here begin to break. That sends a wave of fear down the line. Now the Guardians aren't liking this engagement either. Spear Guard doing their best. They actually buff morale. But it's not enough when so many of these units are routing nearby. There's like 3 or 4 units of wretches. That's going to be a huge problem for them. And now we're not getting the morale penalty debuffs, essentially, from being exhausted any longer, as we had a chance to kind of rest and recuperate. Iron Shot Arbalists down here trying to fire in, but I've now brought out my second unit of cavalry. And this unit here is going to run them down. Now they're going to break almost immediately without being able to fire a single volley. Warback Gajutar charging in, trying to get a piece of the sentries. It looks like they will get a good piece. My sentries are going to get caught. And I was going to use them on rear charges, but then I realized that the whole line had already pretty well broken, so I had no idea what I would even charge. Arbalists here, everything is just fighting to the death. The Bulldogs, even with the presence of the Bulldogs nearby, and the Valoralkar both buff morale, the fatigue debuff was just too much. Got my sentries in here, fighting toe-to-toe with the Vorback Gajutar. And the Vorback are actually pretty well situated to win this fight. Balrogs now charging down, but without their morale buff, the rest of these units are going to break pretty well immediately. Scott High Longfangs trying to retreat and get out of this mess. But we're actually taking some pretty heavy losses on the front lines as well. My scouts have lost 20 since we looked last. The Bladesman Baradythal lost about half their number. Sentries of Hithlum have even taken some casualties here, but we're going to begin to push down now and try and drive these orcs off the hill. Meanwhile down here, my cavalry going toe-to-toe with the Vorback, trying to just swamp them and hit them on all sides, which is something that you can use when you have weaker forces. If you can get surrounding off. If you can surround a more powerful unit, then you can potentially beat them, even with lower quality troops. Another charge here, trying to break this up. Trying to finish off some of these units. Vorback Gajutar getting a charge there, uphill. I think they just cleaned out what remained of my other unit of sentries of Gelion, so down they've fallen. These guys have dropped from 54 down to just 19. Again, the Vorback Gajutar are no joke when it comes to fighting, specifically Horsemen. And they're made to counter units like the sentries of Gelion, so they're suffering grievously at their hands. But up here, the combined might of the elves and the fact that these orc units were so exhausted while we had a chance to regenerate our fatigue has resulted in a resounding victory here over their great numbers. Pull back my sentries of Gelion now, get them back behind my lines. The Warback, I think, are going to try and go for some cheeky charges here against the flank of the sentries of Hithlum. They'll maybe claim a few of them, but you don't want to leave the Vorback in here for too long. And now over here, the Valoralkar chewing their way through what remains of the Bladesman of Baradythal. We're seemingly unable to stop these rampaging colossi.
Seems to be swinging in
Although
our
I say that, and one begins to
From
fall.
such tidings does victory emerge.
A big charge here by those Balrogs, getting that charge bonus off. He's going to cut his way through these units like you wouldn't believe. Now everything is just going to pour in. Fingolfin dueling this Balrog. Not exactly dueling, but he's there on the front lines. Let's see if he manages to get a strike off. Nope, the Balrog is going to push himself further and further away from the High King. Go for it. Get in there, Fingolfin. We really should have had the Balrog guard duel him. That would have been really cool. Is he going to strike down this demon of shadow and fire? Nope. It's running away. It's like, no, forget this. For a cheeky charge there. There's still the Hishpokras Ash Priests who are in the fray. Looks like he was trying to link up with them, and down goes the Balrog. Unfortunately, the High King. Well, maybe he did. I don't think he did though. That would have been cool. Now the Ash Priests are beginning to fall. There's 3 of them still remaining. Look at them go. These Ash Priests are nasty. It's like 1 Ash Priest and an officer that still remains. And a Bannerman. And a couple of the Bulldogs, and they're going to try to rally together. These are both fallen Maiar units. They're going to try and blob up here and use their fear to break through what remains. If they could assassinate Fingolfin, it could certainly be a scary thing indeed. Now everyone's going to swarm against them. And not even these ancient spirits from the beginning of the world will be able to hold the line, as they are assailed on all sides, and they begin to fall in fairly short order. So a little duel here going on beneath the wings of this Balrog. As the general, cuts down another one of the Bladesmen of Bladesman, but is cut down in turn by one of the elves, possibly even Fingolfin himself, who came in there and smashed him aside. Can't even see who's left remaining. It's probably one of the Bulldogs, though. Yeah, it is. You can sort of see him there. Let's see what ultimately becomes of him. Nope, down he goes. That was a very, very close game. A tiny, tiny little bit of my forces still remaining. Let's go ahead. Slow things down to next to nothing. And take one final look at this battlefield. Apocalyptic is the best way to describe it. Destruction all along these lines that saw the end of mostly both teams. But the Orcs managed to eke out a win. And that's going to be it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. It was a damn close game. Well played to all of my opponents. I think that is a game that we definitely should have lost. And I think if the Orcs had not hesitated to come and attack us and let us kind of regenerate our fatigue, they would have been able to just mass rout us, because we would have been dealing with the same exhaustion that they were. And they had the numbers, they had the composition, and they had the morale supporting units to really make that a fight that we weren't able to win. So I think they kind of miscalculated what the result would be if they gave their army a chance to rest, because the Orcs don't regenerate fatigue very well, whereas the Elves will do so rapidly. Yeah, everyone just played really well. There was a few mistakes here and there. I think Captain Gervais losing his second Lancer unit, trying to be cheeky and interfere in our engagement, was something that really ended up showing in their fights with the Tolling Cavalry. If they had that second company of Lancers, and he didn't lose his other one due to all the fear and stuff, because I think taking that engagement as well was probably not a good idea. Especially not with, the fast-moving units like a Troll Guard and such nearby. So losing his cavalry was obviously a problem, but he and his ally worked together well. They held the line, but the Orcs were able to break through on their right wing, and because they didn't have cavalry to stop them, which would have been a Lancer company would have been maybe exactly what the Doctor ordered when it came to dealing with those trolls. They didn't have anything to stop them, and they rolled up their line, and while they managed to kind of pull back in a few places, there was some nice cavalry play from Tundra's Fox, which basically made any hope of recovering from that impossible. And our two Easterling opponents did really well. Tommy Wiseau, in particular, gave me he is good at dealing with cavalry, with infantry, basically. He didn't let me have it all my own way with my Outriders of Dweilwyn, and I ended up losing like 2/3 of the unit, thanks to his counterplay. So excellent work there. On our end, we kind of did as best as I think we could. The Easterlings were a really tough customer. Eclipse supported me really well, and all I could do, my main role in that was just kind of holding the line and using my skirmishers. That was the one thing I think I did well in that battle, is I focused the targets that I needed to focus, particularly the halberdiers for Steward, and ultimately we were able to prevail, but only by a hair's breadth. That could have gone any different direction. I'll reiterate, I think if the orcs had just attacked us outright instead of waiting, then they probably could have smashed us. Their fatigue wouldn't have mattered, because we would have been playing on an equal terms basically. But then they had to attack fresh units uphill, and that advantage, the advantage in numbers, is basically gone. So yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed this. This is a really good game. Hope you enjoyed Eclipse's map. I think it's fantastic. In fact, in my opinion, it's the best map that I've seen come out of the community since we started Silmarillion Total War. Far better than anything that I've done, and I don't want to like say that it's better than other things that other people in the community have done, because I don't want to like denigrate their work. I think that they've all done a fantastic job creating maps for us to play on, but this is by far my favorite. In my opinion, this is the best map and the most versatile, and it's just, there's so much replayability here. You can see it all over the map. There's all kinds of interesting terrain features that both sides are going to have access to. Yeah, I think it's just awesome. And for free-for-alls in particular, I think this is probably the best FFA map that we have. But in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Ha! Just kidding. We're back. I know someone wanted to see this. Someone out there would have been mad if I didn't let you. So there you go. Alright, take care.